For a really long time, electric vehicles have been portrayed as being toys of the wealthy, vehicles that you can only own if you have the money to spend on a high-performance, high-sticker price model with a massive battery pack and a sprint time that's so quick, you'll find yourself inadvertently pulling the Picard manoeuvre as soon as you mash the go pedal to move away from a traffic light. And no, I'm not talking about the shirt-pulling one. I'm talking about Picard at Maxia when the ship was doubled. You know, to facilitate Kira at Bashi, for any children of Tamar watching. Star Trek references aside, however, EVs are not only now available at a wide range of different price points on the new car market. Depending on where you live, you can get a new EV for less than the price of an average new gasoline model. But thanks to the fact that automakers have been making quote-unquote modern EVs for more than a decade, you can now pick up used EVs for a shockingly low amount of money. And while we've done plenty of videos before on used EV choices, it makes sense to give you a little refresh for 2024 because some things have changed in the last few years. So today, I'm going to go through some of the popular EVs on the used car market, explain some of the things to bear in mind, and hopefully get you to a point where you feel comfortable swapping internal combustion for battery electric. In order to get you in the right place with a used electric vehicle and help you pick one that fits your needs the best, there are some things you will need to ask yourself about what things you're comfortable with in terms of maintenance and repair. But before we get to that question, we really should ask another question first. Do you actually need a personal vehicle? If you live in a major urban area, the answer might be no, especially if you're someone who telecommutes or happens to have access to reliable public transit. Sure, those of us in North America that have to put up with the laughable bus and train services that many cities offer may genuinely not be able to manage daily trips with public transit. But in many parts of the world, public transit is the smarter choice. In fact, in some cities, the money saved from not owning a car can not only offset the cost of monthly travel passes, but fund your membership to a local car club for the times when you really absolutely need to borrow a suitable vehicle. And look, I know nobody likes being stuck on the Victoria line in the height of a summer heatwave when the air conditioning isn't working, but if it's that, or being stuck in a massive tailback because a lorry stuck a bridge somewhere, honestly, I'll go for the Victoria line. Although, actually, I'd go for cycling, because that's exactly what I did when I was a student 24 years ago in London. But you get my point. Different places will influence if you can survive without your own personal set of wheels. At the same point, I should also throw in a mention of micromobility. While it's not always as versatile as a 4-seat, fully covered car, many people in many parts of the world use cargo bicycles and trikes as their daily drivers instead of cars, be they human-powered or human-electric hybrids. They may have a car that they keep for occasional use, and if that sounds like something you can do, it actually might be beneficial to go that route and keep your existing car. Yes, it will still maybe have an exhaust and pollute, but as long as you're committed to leaving the car at home for all but occasional trips, you'll be better in a financial position than you would be with an EV. You'll be fitter, likely healthier, and your community will also be less congested. Those key points out of the way, let's look at the questions I mentioned about repair and after-sales stuff. If you are someone who likes getting out your Fluke or your Tektronix to have a little sneaky peek at what's going on under the hood, if you understand, in fact, what peak-to-peak is, you can spot a phase shift and knows what pulse frequency is. If you're someone who looks at the footage of this B-roll of someone soldering and has a violent reaction as to how terrible the resulting pigeon poop on top of the circuit board is, well, then you are probably going to have a much broader choice of potential used EVs to pick from. If you have the time and the skills to work on your electric vehicle, the world is your oyster. In just this week, for example, I've seen amazing vehicles pass through classifieds that would be awesome project vehicles for someone with the know-how who doesn't travel a whole lot every day, ranging from an original Ford Ranger EV through to a Corbin Sparrow and several original Toyota RAV4 EVs. Will they be the best vehicles for daily driving? Probably not. But again, if you're technically minded, I'm going to leave you to make your own informed decisions on that one. Just make sure that if you do get one, you join up with an EV owning association in your respective country, and make sure you join forums dedicated to obscure and older EVs. I know, for example, without my membership of the various Vectrix owners forums I'm on, I would be completely in the dark when it comes to working on my VX1. I am still working on my VX1. Of course, if you're someone who is electronics savvy or someone who is willing to learn, there are plenty of newer EVs around on the used car market that are decent choices, vehicles that other people may not want to opt for because of limited official support. And I'm going to mention these as we go through my list. If all of the technical terms I just rattled off a while back make you a little nervous, don't worry. There are plenty of great used EV choices in the marketplace that are still well supported by dealerships and third-party repair specialists. But I should also acknowledge that EVs generally require very little maintenance. They don't require the extensive service of an internal combustion engine vehicle, and the stuff that does need regular attention, like brakes, suspension and steering, is generally easy and simple enough for most garages with decent knowledge to be able to work on. Although I should note that cars with regen braking do sometimes require special brake bleeding procedures. I'm just throwing in that fact, basically because EVs don't need a lot of repair most of the time. But when they do go wrong, it's good to have a knowledgeable and easily accessible repair option. And for that, you need a car that's well supported. And at the top of that list, in 2024, is the erstwhile Nissan LEAF. In production since 2010, the LEAF is the longest production electric car you can buy today. While the earliest LEAFs now have battery packs that are a shadow of their former self. I mean, I've seen LEAFs on sale locally in the Pacific Northwest with real-world usable ranges of 30 to 50 miles. Those vehicles are also available for just a few thousand US dollars and sometimes less. A cursory look at other markets shows a similar pattern for similarly tired vehicles. While that's not enough range for many people, if you are looking for a budget entry into the EV world and you have a genuine real-world commute of around 25 miles or 40 kilometres, a commute distance that, statistically speaking, is far more than the average commute in most countries today, then a vehicle like that should be a good pick, especially if you have access to overnight garage parking, or you have parking adjacent to your home where you could fit a charging station. Sure, it's not going to make long-distance trips that practical, but the thing to remember here is that, well, firstly, most people don't make regular long-distance trips, and secondly, there are always alternatives for longer-distance trips for the overwhelming majority of people. There will, of course, always be edge cases, and I'm sure someone will angrily tell me in the comments right now that I'm smoking something illegal by saying what I just said, but statistics don't lie. Most people don't do a lot of long-distance trips, and most people don't drive very far in a year. And because of my long QT, I can't smoke anything. Of course, there's also the fact that LEAFs, thanks to an amazing aftermarket community and open source projects spearheaded by amazingly talented people, can be fitted with new battery packs from newer vehicles. The cost depends on the pack you opt for and the condition of the pack from the car you're replacing, but the LEAF worldwide is the most commonly upgraded EV out there. And of course, if you have more than a few $1,000s burning a hole in your pocket, there are many, many more examples of the LEAF on sale in the used car marketplace with much healthier battery packs and more usable daily ranges for the kind of money that most people would spend on a tired budget hatch from about 10 years ago. If you live in a market where the Renault ZOE was sold, early examples are available for a similar price to those older Nissan LEAFs. Renault does still work on the ZOE, which was retired from production earlier this year. But unlike the Renault Fluence ZE, which was very much a niche market vehicle from day one, and the Renault Twizy, which, while fun, isn't officially a car but a quadricycle, the Renault ZOE was made in large enough volumes that parts are still readily available, and there's a massive amount of support through owners' forums and clubs. Moreover, just like the Nissan LEAF, the Renault ZOE was made with a range of different battery pack options throughout its 12 and a bit years of production. And just as Nissan LEAF enthusiasts are working to improve the range of early LEAFs by by transplanting battery packs from newer vehicles whose external bits may have suffered a severe collision, so too have some Renault ZOE enthusiasts and boutique shops started to do the same, replacing 22 kilowatt-hour original ZOE battery packs with 52 kilowatt-hour battery packs from newer models. But like the LEAF, if you're considering buying a used ZOE with a view to eventually replacing the battery pack, know that it can still be a little pricey. For some folks, though, this is the more sensible route, as it might allow you to buy a vehicle outright, save up the pennies for a new battery pack, and then either do the upgrade yourself or pay someone to do it for you. Because both of these vehicles were in production for so long, they do occupy a unique place in the EV marketplace. Other models, well, support really can be a hit and miss, with availability of parts, knowledgeable dealerships, and more, often down to where you actually live, rather than the vehicle itself. For example, here in the Pacific Northwest, there's still, believe it or not, a fairly committed group of Think City owners whose needs are met by a combination of knowledgeable enthusiasts and independent repair specialists. You can, if you know the right people, still get a Think City serviced. Common repairs aren't too much of a headache, and while more esoteric parts are becoming something of a problem, if you're looking for an affordable round-town runabout that isn't a Nissan LEAF, it is an option. At least it is here in Portland, Oregon. Try to own one of these quirky little runabouts elsewhere without any local specialists. That's a recipe for disaster. Basically, for any vehicle that was made in smallish numbers that's considered either niche or compliance car, including everything from the original Toyota RAV4 EVs through to Fiat 500Es and more besides, your local service options will dramatically impact how practical and everyday these vehicles can truly be. If you have a little more money and you happen to live somewhere where the Chevrolet Bolt EV was sold, you should find a reasonably good after-sales support network in place. Granted, the Bolt wasn't sold anywhere near as long as the Nissan LEAF or the Renault ZOE, but because of GM's battery recall program for the Bolt EV, the majority of used Bolt EVs on the market today have newish batteries for whatever remains of their 8-year, 100,000-mile replacement warranty. The Bolt was, and I might argue is, the cheapest long-range EV available on the used car market in many areas, although you should also know that not all Chevrolet Bolt EVs came from the factory with CCS fast charging as standard, so if you're looking, make sure that you're looking for one that has those two little CCS pins underneath the J1772 inlet. While the Chevrolet Bolt EV was certainly once well out of the price range of many used car buyers, the last 6 months has seen a dramatic drop in overall pricing, both for new and used vehicles. Here in the Pacific Northwest, where I'm based, I've seen Bolt EVs for less than $12,000, and when you consider that US federal tax incentives can now be applied to used purchases too, you might be able to nab a pretty good deal. Of course, there are plenty of other options out there as well, and like I said at the start of this video, which vehicles you choose will depend on what your proficiencies are when it comes to maintenance and repair. But there are some points to remember. Specifically that the more complex your chosen used car is, the more likely it is you'll hit problems. And that's certainly the case when it comes to plug-in hybrids and range-extended EVs. The BMW i3 Rex, for example, while a great choice on paper for those who needed a little larger range occasionally than a single charge might be able to provide, is known for having much lower reliability than the battery electric version. In fact, I know multiple people who traded in their range-extended i3 Rexes for something else, specifically because of a laundry list of issues with the range-extended system. But I can't think of that many people at all who had major issues who happened to own the battery version of the i3. And while the Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid and siblings from Toyota stable might still have good after-sales support and service because Toyota's big thing is hybrids, I'd be remiss for pointing out that the Chevrolet Volt, which I still think is one of the best range-extended plug-in hybrids made, has seen its support dramatically fall as fewer and fewer Chevrolet dealerships have experience in the model, and those that do are quite happily charging ridiculously large prices for service and repairs. Just like all of the other vehicles I've mentioned though, the Chevrolet Volt now has a community of enthusiasts rallying around it, and there's even an open source Volt project devoted to ensuring these vehicles can stay on the road long after they rolled off the production line, and that includes the Opel and Vauxhall Ampera in Europe. But If you are not tech savvy, don't have the skills to self-repair and aren't interested in learning, you shouldn't be buying one. And of course, let's not forget the Tesla range of EVs. It's not uncommon to see the earliest Model S examples hitting used car listings at a fraction of what they were new, and we're sometimes even seeing the occasional Model X offered at unbelievably low prices. But for the most part, these earliest cars can require a little more service time than newer variants, and I've heard some horror stories about Tesla wanting a pretty penny to fix early vehicles, which, to be fair to Tesla, is pretty much what every other automaker does with cars over 8 years old, regardless of the fuel type. And as with other cars I've mentioned in this video, there are some great third-party independent garages who will happily work on older Teslas, and if you're willing to do some DIY stuff, there is a whole underground network of Tesla fans and engineers keeping these early mass-produced vehicles happy. Model 3 is also starting to get that same enthusiast support network, meaning lower cost repairs and non-official support is out there. But just like most other vehicles, if you rely on the company that originally made it for official repairs, you might be spending a lot. That said, it would be disingenuous to not note that the Model 3 probably has some of the best and most comprehensive non-official aftermarket parts choices, ranging from add-ons like swiveling centre screens through to custom suspension, wheel and trim packages, if that floats your boat. There are, of course, many other EVs I haven't mentioned, either because they've not been on sale for a long enough time to see a robust, affordable used market, or because they're made in small enough numbers that ownership might prove difficult. The too long didn't read, though, is if you're not into DIY repair, stick to some of the models I've just mentioned. But if you are willing to learn and get your sleeves rolled up, well, the world is your oyster. Thanks for joining me today, and if you've got thoughts, make sure you leave them in our Discord chat room, on our Patreon page, or you can reach out to us on Mastodon. Thanks to the amazing list of people scrolling by on your screen right now. They are some of more than the 1,500 people who help fund this channel through Patreon and YouTube, covering our bills, paying our team, and making sure we can be 100% independent. If you'd like to join them and see your name listed here, just follow the links below. There are a range of different tiers you can sign up for, from as little as $1 a month, or if you pay yearly, just under $11 a year. A huge welcome to our newest supporters: Biggs Bronson, Philip Panya, Stephen Trudeau, Laura Connolly, Paul Giblin, Kaboombox, Oliver, John Franks, Bill Lascelle, Brent Smith, Terry and Rich UK, Wendy Kelly Budenbaum, Joe Hamlin, Ilian Oster, Brian Curry, Chelsea Williams, and Adekunle Ferinya. To join the list and get your shout out, become a paid Patreon member and get your moment of fame. If you'd like to support us with a one-off donation, you'll find links below to make Ko-fi and Bitcoin donations, and we even have an old-fashioned PO box you can reach us at, address also below. And if you're in need of some swag, you'll find our swag store in the down below. This month, we're talking about accessibility with our latest t-shirt design, and keep your eyes peeled for a brand new special t-shirt for our trip to Everything Electric in Canada next month. We've got some great content coming up, so make sure you're subscribed on PeerTube or YouTube, and we'll see you soon. We make new videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you want more, the mighty algorithm thinks you'll like this video, but we think that this one is also well worth a look. See you soon, and as always, keep evolving!